When watching drum corps shows, the one thing that always fascinated me the most was the visual design aspects. See, somebody had to go out and plot out where every member would march to and when. Some drills have been so mind-boggling that I could never even imagine thinking about how they would work in my head. But someone had to create what would be this kind of modern drill design. And that someone is George Zingali.
So, on a football field, you gotta exaggerate everything. Everything is larger than life. And you almost have to do that on the stage also. Even when you're whispering, you can command that authority. You can do that.
George Zingali began his drum corps career with the 27th Lancers, where he began marching at the age of 17 and stayed with the corps until his age out as drum major in 1973. After aging out with the corps, George would go on to work as an instructor for 2-7, focusing more particularly on the color guard and later road drill. Zingali's work with the color guard at 27th Lancers can only be described as innovative, bringing things that had never before been seen on a drum corps field. George became pretty well known in the community for being an innovator and a genius for his work with the 27th Lancers. And some credit has to be given to the corps director at the time, who decided to take a chance on letting a 20-something kid create some of the most important aspects of what a drum corps show would be. And clearly it paid off. I mean, when you look at how well 2-7 was doing competitively, particularly in the year 1980, when they took second place just under 0.4 of a point away from that year's champion, the Blue Devils. In 1982, Zingali was no longer working at 2-7, and when word spread, he was quickly offered a position at the Garfield Cadets, along with Mark Sylvester and Peggy Twins. That next year, the Cadets leapt to 3rd place from their previous year's 7th place finish. The show was something special, but it was only a small look at what was to come for the Cadets in the next 3 years. And so, the Cadets got the first ever three-peat. I can't say how much of that success was off the back of Zingali's work, but I would say it at least wasn't a coincidence that the Corps found its success just 1 year after bringing on someone who was already known for bringing innovation to the activity. There's one thing I'd like to point out. Hopefully you'll notice some stark differences in how the drill was written. Just between the clip of 27th Lancers and these clips of Cadets, symmetrical drill was starting to lose its hold on drum corps. And while George was not the first one to do asymmetrical drill, I like to believe that he felt like the cuffs of symmetrical drill were being unshackled, because it's from here on that we would see the true genius of Zingali's drill designs. Before we move on to focusing on the feats of Zingali's drill, I think it's important to point out what George's mindset was when drawing his designs. At this time, computer-aided drill design was still in its infancy. Poware existed as an idea, but was just starting to roll out some rudimentary plotting programs. However, it was nothing like what we know as today's standard for drill designing software. Many drill designers were either outright staging their drill or plotting them by hand with paper and pencil. This year, I had my first experience with plotting drill by hand, and let me tell you, it sucks. And while I have my issues with Pyware, I did find a new appreciation for it after that. Already at this point, Zingali's drill was known for being eye-catching and going well with the music. And Zingali would play on that later in a clinic where he described the process that he would use when writing his drill.
The reason that I write good drill is not because I know about visual design. It's because I listen to the music so much that it becomes a part of me. I no longer think in terms of counts or measures or musical phrases. It is me. And that comes about by listening, by appreciating, by leaving it alone and going someplace else to research that piece of music. And the more you research it, the more levels you can put in it.
I think just looking at the drill we've seen from Cadets, hopefully you can kind of see what I mean when I talk about how impressive it is when you view Zingali's drill from the perspective of coming from a time before Pyware. George would remain with the Cadets until 1986, when he would get offered a position in a newer drum corps. So new, it was actually only going to be their second year in existence. So how was this brand new corps able to get such a well-known designer to leave the Cadets, who had just won 3 in a row? That answer is pretty obvious, and it's money. Zingali had a deal with the Cadets that he would work for $8,000 a season, but both he and Mark had been offered $25,000 to work for this new corps, Star of Indiana. In the years following, Zingali would continue writing drill for Star of Indiana, but also made some returns to 27th, the Cadets, and then wrote for Blue Knights. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact years that he wrote for all of these corps, but either way, you need to know that he was cementing this new style of drill, something that other designers could only attempt to emulate. In addition to being known for his fantastic drill, Zingali was also well beloved by those he taught for his personality. He was described as being someone who could get the impossible out of people. Throughout his time with the marching arts community, Zingali had brought things to the field that had never been seen. Guard spinning while laying down, the Z-pull, and probably most notably, the cross-to-cross.
And we start thinking, drawing things, and the cross, and one cross came in and the other cross came in. And I remember one time he drew the cross and he literally had tears coming out of his eyes. And then I don't know where it came from, but the birth of the cross happened. Wherever it happened, he said, I think I've got it. And it was just the idea was born.
At this point in Zingali's life, many recount that he was exhausted, and this was due to the fact that he had been struggling with a years-long battle with AIDS. However, when he started to teach the cross-to-cross moment, many described that he seemed to be re-energized through his love of drum corps. The stories of the cross-to-cross are numerous, but the general consensus is that the night that the staff added it to the show, the corps rehearsed till well past midnight. They were not stopping until it was done right.
And ultimately what happened was we were going to do the new ending, and it was written and we learned it, and we put it together. And I remember we were done, we put our horns down, we were waiting to hey, what are we doing next? And we're just standing there waiting, and you just saw the staff up there talking. You didn't know what they were talking about. You just see the staff talking. And Jim Mason brought everybody in and said, hey guys, it's not right. And George Zingali, who was sick at the time, he was leaving the next day. So it had to get done. And by the way, this is the last 2 weeks of the year. So it had to get done that night. So Jim Mason, said, hey, we're staying here until it's done. And if that's till 2 or 3 in the morning, then that's what it's going to do. That's what it's going to be. And so we're like, all right, well, we're like, okay, let's get it done. We're all all in, And George taught all of that from the field.
Here's a quote by Bill Cook, the founder of Star of Indiana, discussing the creation of the cross-to-cross. Late in the afternoon, he told Jim, "The new closer is not right." A few minutes later, he left the stadium. None of us knew where he had gone or if he would be back. About 8 o'clock, George returned and said, "We are going to have 2 crosses at the finish instead of 1. The next 5 hours were unbelievable. He ran from one section to another, telling members where they should be at the end of the final cross. He wanted them to count measures. Count and run around until time to make your final set. Hour after hour, the Corps tried and failed, but finally, at 2 a.m. the next morning, the cross was seen. The next night in Lynn, Star put in the new move. Needless to say, there were more than a few wrecks at the end, but we won over Santa Clara Vanguard by 1.9 points.
George Zingali, one of the forefathers of modern visual design, devoted his life and talents to many corps, including his 27th Lancers, the Garfield Cadets, the Blue Knights, and the Star of Indiana. George came to Star in 1985 for the first of his 4 seasons with the Corps. His final contributions to the Drum Corps activity came in his visual design of the 1991 program, culminating in what is still known today as the Cross to Cross. In this, one of the final rehearsals of not only 1991, but of George's brilliant life, he spoke to our dedication and our faith with the inspiration only he could provide.
Excellent. Excellent. Now let's build the company front. Excellent. You guys, when you do that, it really looks like an organism. You're doing really good. Into the cross. Build into the cross. It's a very important statement. It's a statement about life. It's a statement about how much work you've done all year. It's a statement about your beliefs in life and God and you and who you are.
Zingali was notably a deeply religious man, and I think that the cross-to-cross being one of his last creations was beautiful, almost as if it was his final gift, and not just a gift to the greater drum corps community, but a gift to God from himself. George Zingali passed away on March 6th, 1992, just a few months after his 40th birthday. Zingali left a lasting mark on the activity, both with his creations, but also with his love for the activity. At the time, some of his designs could have been viewed as impossible, but he was just a man that could get anybody to try anything, and I think that's why so much of what he did worked.
And it was weird trying to convince someone of something foreign. And there was a reason in my mind visually. Whether people knew it or not, my mother came up to me and she said, "I like it, I can sing the music." That's the first thing she said. B, the second, I always listen to my mother, she knows best. B, the second thing she said was, "Those drill things you're doing are very interesting. What are they?" I said, "Well, they kind of fight each other." She said, "Yeah, I noticed one was a little curved and one was a little straight. What'd you do that for?" Because I said I was trying to show the opposite, you know. And then she said, "Oh." She walked away. She said, "That's good." My mother always said to me, you can't do this band and drum corps crap and drill team and color guards all your life." And I said, she was right. I refused to believe her. And the best thing about it is that now that I am in the theater and working on that, it has opened up so many avenues to create in bands and drum corps that I didn't have before. Different ways to look at things, different ideas to think about. I mean, I would hope that most of you try new things all the time so that your performers will A, learn how to achieve, B, be able to be exposed to some other piece of music, C, be able to be exposed to a new idea. It's going to make work very hard for you guys and for me, because you always have to try and think of something new, you know? And to do that, tough. Because you always end up wanting to go back to something that you feel secure with. The minute it's unknown to you, it's, oh God, will this work? And you gotta go with it. You gotta go with the choice.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. With these history style videos, I want to make sure that I put out the most accurate information I can. Going forward, I'm going to try to make it a point to add my sources in the description so that others may find what I found. Other than that, I hope you really enjoyed my video, and leave me a like and subscribe if you did. I'll see y'all next time.